in the face of adversity, in the face of uncertainty, and getting stronger. So thriving, i.e., getting stronger despite all those setbacks. That's what resilience means to me.
Carlos, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Aaron. Good to be here.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Absolutely. My first and most important question is, how are you doing? Like, actually, for real, Carlos, how are you doing?
Yeah, I think balancing life and work is it's a constant journey. I've found there's no like hack, like with kids. And before we got on the air, you told me about the fact you're going to be a father soon. Congrats on that. And I have two little ones myself, a 6-year old, a 2-year old, or one who's going to be 6 and a 2-year old. With that, balancing that as a father, a husband, all the different roles in our lives, it's a constant journey. There's no end. And yeah, you can have systems and structure and project management tools and everything, but at the end of the day, I think there's going to be a lot of unbalance for some time. But over time, you want to be conscious of like where the unbalance is, and try to find some balance as best you can. And but yeah, I'm doing good. I think it's about managing expectations. Because I think a lot of times progress is invisible, and we want to get so many things done, and what ends up happening, or what I end up doing, is filling up my plate, and then I realize I have too much on my plate, and my wife is always telling me that I have a habit of doing this, which I haven't learned my lesson yet. And um and yeah, managing expectations and just understanding that progress is often invisible, and you can't do everything at the same time. You have to prioritize and make decisions as to what I can do, and what I have to just wait and be patient. So yeah, learning a lot, learning patience, learning to listen to my wife more.
Yeah. I, I think about like, I've been an athlete my whole life. This is, almost 420 episodes of this podcast. And so I think about high performance like a lot in human nature. And something you said is like, there's that dark side of trying to be really, really good at something that we do try and do as much as humanly possible. And then we get to sort of a point where delegation and doing less but more becomes even more valuable than just trying to do everything. But I do think there is maybe a stage younger in life where you do try and do as much as humanly possible, where you're on sort of a sprint. And then when other priorities become more important, like becoming a husband or becoming a father, then it's more about sort of living in harmony with all of those things and understanding when I can give my full effort to each of those domains. No real question there, but anything you want to sort of riff off that as
Yeah,
if you have
no, for
anything.
sure. Yeah, as you get older, and like you said, and gain more experiences and expand your roles in your life, like being a parent, or a husband or a wife, you gain perspective, right? And you start seeing, okay, what's actually important to me and what's not so important. And it helps you gain perspective in terms of what you should be prioritizing at the end of the day. But yeah, like you said, the whole dark side thing. Yeah, I mean, like if you're ambitious, you're gonna want to do things, right? And yeah, it's okay. Like you said, when you're young, you start pursuing that, but you have to implement. I think what's worked for me is systems. As simple as like a weekly review or a monthly review, where I look at my area. Like there's something called Wheel of Life, you may have heard of, and basically it's just a list of the roles in my life, the areas in my life, and then like every week or every couple of weeks I just rank them. I rank them, and just doing that consciously lets me know, like on a number scale, 1 to 10, where is my energy going. Like as a father, am I like a 7 this past week? Am I a 9? Was I there? Was I present for my kid? Because when you become a dad, you start to think, how your parents were, and how you don't want to repeat the same mistakes that they did, and you want to, better life for them, et cetera, et cetera. And so you think about those things. And one of the most important things for me is, how can I make sure to be present, you know? Because that's what your kids want. They want you to be there. They don't want you to be next to your phone, looking at your phone while you're there. Like, if I'm there, I'm watching TV with my kids and I'm on my phone, my son sees that. He's like, "Dad, get off your phone. Let's watch together." He wants me to be there with him, you know? And it's such a small detail, but it's so important for kids. It's so important that you're like there, not just physically present, but like fully engaged, you know, like actually just being there, just being there with him. And yeah, just my thinking about fatherhood a lot.
Yeah, was there yeah, me too, man, me too. Was there anything, in your life from all your previous careers or anything that you studied or learned that really prepared you for fatherhood, or is it just sort of flying by the seat of your pants, trying to do the best you can?
Yeah. For no, actually, it's I'd always ask that question, "Hey man, what books are you reading about fatherhood or how is it?" Like I'm sure you've asked those same questions with your friends, with your guy friends who are now dads. And like they all saying the same theme, like you can read all these books, but nothing's gonna prepare you for being a dad because it's just gonna become intuitive in terms of what you should be doing and the experiences that you had with your parents, if they're strong enough, your subconscious will activate that. You're going to remember those experiences that you had, and it's just going to come out, and you're going to be like, okay, yeah, I'm definitely not going to do what my dad did here. I'm definitely going to do what my mom did there. Those experiences just pop up from your subconscious because they're so seared into our long-term memory because they were so impactful either in a positive way or in a negative way that those things are going to come out, and that is already so much um you know food for thought, so much ammunition to use as for being a good parent, from all those experiences that you have. So I think it's very practical in nature. You can read all these books about fatherhood, like what not to do, like all these podcasts about how to raise your kid, do's and don'ts. There's so much out there, you're going to have to spend hours and hours looking at all those podcasts and reading all those books, but I think keeping things simple is the best way. Like for me, you know, I had to work on myself before I wanted to have kids because I had a lot of insecurities growing up. I had a lot of anxiety and fears, and I developed this avoidance personality, essentially. Like this habit of just avoiding things. And so what that did in my life was, well, it made me more scared. It made me scared of people, made me scared of situations, made me scared of going and taking risks or being bold. And and then as you think about your future and like, okay, you're gonna be a dad, like I can't be a dad if I have these issues, like I have to be the example, because I would not want my kid to go through the things that I went through. So I have to, it's like that book from that Navy SEAL, do your bed. I forget the name of the book, but he says like a simple premise. Like if you want to change the world, you got to start by making your bed, right? You got to like start yourself. You got to build yourself first. And then you can worry about, saving eliminating poverty or saving the world. You can't. Like we try to take care of other people at the expense of ourselves, but we need to focus on ourselves first. And just this other point about like how we cling on to this notion of like if you can't do it for yourself, do it for them or do it for this person. You've heard that saying before, right? Like I get that, but for me, it's like you have to do it for yourself first, right? Like, because if you can't do it for yourself, then how are you going to be there when it's time to be strong for your kids? I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, I think there's an element of both. Like, I'll use a personal example. Like, for a long time, I didn't know if I wanted kids.
Mm.
And then something catastrophic happened in my life where I lost my sister Rachel, and she was supposed to be the one that was going to have kids. So I never worried about having it. She was going to have the big family. My parents were going to get grandparents because of her, and then she passes away. And so initially, right after that, when I got with my wife, which was about 4 years ago now, initially when I got with her, I was like, oh, we should definitely have kids. Like, but then I was like, I want to have kids for them, not for me. And so what am I going to do in the middle of the night when my son or my daughter is crying? I'm going to feel resentful about the fact that I had this kid to make my parents happy. And now I'm the one in the trenches doing the work. And then I'm not showing up in the way that I actually need to because I didn't actually want this kid. I wanted it for an other reason, a good reason to make my parents happy so they could have something to love and to care for since they lost a child. But I'm the one doing the thing with my wife. And so I explained that to my wife. And then over time, I fixed those things. I was like, I do want to be a dad. Like that's gonna be
Yeah.
fucking cool, man. Why not? That's the responsibility of a lifetime. What's the point of having all of this knowledge and learning all of these things from great people if I have literally no one to share it with? So now it's a combination of both, like you're saying, I'm doing it for me because fuck yeah, it's gonna be awesome. But there's also other benefits outside of me, like my mom and dad get to have a grandchild and all these cool
Mhm.
things. So I agree with what you're saying. I think there's an element of both to it, and you really have to get honest about that. I had to get really honest about like, is this actually something that I want? Or am I doing it for some other reason? And you could say that about literally anything in your life. Are you doing this because you actually want it? Or are you doing it because the cool person on social media is doing it and you want to fucking try and do the same shit?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's I agree with that. Like, are you like we do so many things for the wrong reasons, you know? Like I, used to do a lot of things for just to like hold an image or a persona or impress people or be liked by people or have people think of me in a certain light, right? But at the end of the day, you can't control people's opinions because like status, being proud of staying at the office for hour, like I'm talking about the workplace now, right? Like being proud of staying at the office or having these job titles or these color belts, talking about martial arts, just making sure you're doing things for the right reasons, not to impress other people or make people think of you in a certain way. It's so exhausting when you live like that, like trying to uphold an image that at the end of the day it's not up to you, right? It's like the only things you can control is your habits, your behaviors, like the living in line with your values, whatever is important to you, and not living using other people's standard of what success looks like, like you said, the whole social media thing. Like, there's something that you may have heard of, an acronym called FOPO, fear of people's opinions. And this is something that I've read a lot about because I realized it's something that I had. I basically lived based on how people would judge me, right? And so that was part of my imposter syndrome, like imposter syndrome, this feeling of not being good enough. And then it caused me to over prepare, overthink, and hesitate a lot. And then I realized that imposter syndrome really was just like an amplification of fearing being judged by people, right? Worrying about other people's opinions. Because if you think about it, like if there weren't people around us, if there weren't eyeballs on us, would we have imposter syndrome? No, not really, because there's nobody there, right? Wouldn't really be feeling not good enough because there's nobody to compare yourself with, right? And or nobody to worry about being judged. So for me, it was that, and it just controlled my decisions. It controlled my actions. It just made me just fearful of things, And then I had to I had to fix that because it was such a problem, man. Like it really is, and a lot of people it doesn't discriminate. Like you can have the sexiest job title, you can be a professional athlete, but if you're pursuing championships, you're pursuing job titles for the wrong reasons, you're gonna be pretty miserable, You're gonna be pretty unhappy.
Yeah. I see it all the time, man, because I coach, well, at least over the summer, I coach 17-year-olds for baseball. And you always get those one or two kids who are just so naturally gifted. Like this shit just comes fucking easy, bro. And baseball's a hard sport. Like it's really skill oriented. And so even those types of just naturally gifted athletes who show up to the field and they just wah, 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 or they throw 97 or whatever the case may be. And there's always a couple of them who don't even like the game. They don't even like the game, but they play it because their dad knows they're good and they play because they know they're good and they just do it because they feel like they sort of have to. And it's exactly what you're talking about. And then eventually they get to college probably and they realize how hard and challenging it is and all these things you have to put in. And then it goes to show like the kids that actually do love the game, how much extra work they put into. And there's just this whole vibe around it. So I see it all the time. And of course, you're going to see it when you get into, the corporate environment because, in some cultures, like your only option is to be a doctor or a lawyer. What if you don't want to be a doctor or a lawyer? You know what I
Right.
mean? It's like,
Uh,
Like, I never had that growing up. My parents, was supported me in anything that I ever did, which is unbelievable. But some people don't have that vibe. And it's like very challenging to say, like, this is not for me. Like, I
yeah.
know I'm good at this thing. Like, I'm really good at this thing and I could make millions of dollars doing this thing. But man, will I be miserable for the rest of my life? That's a very hard call because money's important. Money drives everything. It doesn't drive our whole lives, but we need a base level of money to provide for ourselves and our family. And so, like, that's a huge sort of tug of war probably for some people who go through that battle.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And like that thing you said about kids, like not, I think it's important to keep things fun, because if you push your kids, I found that if I push my boy does judo, I do judo too. And I found that I can't push, I have to keep things fun, like one of the things I tell him before he steps on the mat is remember, keep it fun, like breathe, have fun, focus. Those are just three simple words I tell him before he steps on the mat. The reason I tell him that keep it fun is because he's a kid, right? He's gonna be 6 in September. Like you're supposed to have fun. You're not supposed to push your kid because what's gonna happen is you're gonna make them hate it. And then they're not gonna want to do it. I don't want that. It's a fine balance between helping him build, like guiding him to build discipline and doing something that's difficult. Judo is very difficult, but also having fun with it, right? Keeping things playful. Like there's a fine balance with that. And a lot of people live in quiet desperation. They go to law school for the wrong reasons. They go to medical school for the wrong reasons because it's a status symbol, right? Oh, I'm a doctor. Oh, I'm a lawyer. But you see so many of them are like so unhappy because they're doing it for the wrong reasons. They're doing it for a status thing. They're not doing it because they actually like it. Most lawyers, man, I'm a lawyer myself, but I'll tell you, most lawyers are unhappy. You think lawyers go to the office saying, "Wow, I want to write these briefs. I want to look at this evidence, and I want to be working on the weekends, right?" No, like who in their right mind would say that? Like nobody cares, man. Like, oh, you gotta take care of your body. You know, a lot of lawyers don't take care of their body. They have no time, right? And they follow this trajectory of, okay, college, grad school, or college, law school, medical school, without taking the time to like realize what do you want to do, man? Like when you graduate college, what are you like 21, whatever it is, 22, and then you have the ability to go straight into law school. Like, why would you do that? It's not only is it so much money, but you don't even know who you are, man. You haven't even explored. You haven't had sufficient experiences to figure out what it is, what are your inclinations, what are your preferences, what are your desires, what do you like, what do you not like, right? And then they haven't experimented enough, they haven't built enough confidence or resilience or boldness, the ability to take risks, that when they get to law school they have loans to pay and they're stuck. They can't go be a cake maker because they got loans to pay. You put yourself in that situation, right? And you have to now, what are you going to do now? Well, you got to learn how to, you got to make it work, right? You got to start a side hustle, try to figure out what you want to do. And unfortunately, many people, I think, like in the legal field, they realize that in their 40s, or in their 50s, when it's like, man, you should have done this years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very true. Like, I see a lot of coaches who don't line up their words and actions, and that's something I've been thinking a lot about as a father. Like, that's really what I wanna do, line up my words and actions. And you see a lot of coaches who are really fat, out of shape, and all they're doing is telling their kids to work out, to eat right, to work hard. It's like, you're not doing any of that shit. Those words are falling so flat. Like, I know you're busy. You probably have 4 kids. You probably have a wife. You teach at the school. You probably coach. Of course, you do all of those things. But you think the kids that you're coaching aren't busy as well? They're at school all day. They got homework. They're trying to figure out, girls or boys or whatever the case may be. And it's like, you're telling them to do all these things that you don't do. And that's
Mm.
like one of the most frustrating parts, I think, about like any sort of leader or coach. Maybe you see this with your company at or at Progress Lab, but it's like that's
Yeah.
what you got to get people to do is like line up their words and actions. And if you're not, then it's a mirror to you. Like, okay, what am I doing and not doing that is not allowing me not to reach the people that I'm trying to get to do the things that are most beneficial to them?
Yeah. No, for sure, man. I totally agree with that. Like, And my yeah, True Progress Lab, one of the things I do is I coach leaders. I go into organizations and I coach like leadership teams on resilience and leadership and stuff like that. And these people, they want these quick fixes and they want to be seen as this great leader, but you have to realize, like, it's not just what comes out of your mouth. It's like, are you working out? Are you playing the part, right? Are you taking care of your health? Are you looking physically fit? Like, if you want to be a leader, it's not just the mental side, it's the physical side. You gotta look like Superman. Not Superman, but you gotta look the part, man. Like, you want to be a leader who's respected and seen and listened to. Well, you gotta be somebody who walks the walk, right? Walks the talk. And that requires that you work out your body. That's like a big chunk of what we do is working out, like engaging in some sort of rigorous physical activity, because it's the perfect vehicle to learn how to manage your thoughts and your emotions, right? Like, take running for example. If you're on that last mile, you don't want to run that last mile. Those thoughts are going to come up in your head, right? Then you have to learn how to manage those thoughts. The perfect arena on how to learn how to manage your thoughts and emotions using your body and some physical rigorous exercise. And yeah, that's the reason why I started judo. That's the reason why I started ultra running. I don't know if you know ultra running. Basically anything over a marathon, 22 miles. And I don't do it because I like it. I do it because it helps me train my mind. Basically, it's like, it's just a vehicle. That's all it is, man. It's not necessarily look good, although that's a good side benefit. You get in shape and all that, but um, yeah. Yeah, I think leaders need to learn that, man, that they need to get in shape too, especially lawyers. You have a lot of lawyers making so much money, but they're not playing the part. You gotta work out, man. You gotta get after it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's exactly why I train jujitsu. Same thing why you do judo. It's like,
Dude.
I need to get into the arena. I need to get my fucking hands dirty. I need to get choked out.
Oh my.
Uh, I've been an athlete my whole life, so I need some sort of fucking competition.
Yeah.
All that stuff. Like, I go to the gym. I've been going to the gym since I was 13. That's no problem. It's like autopilot. I go to the gym, I
Yeah.
work out, I come home. But jujitsu is different. Like, I'm not very good at it, all these sorts of things. It's like sort of mentally draining because of all the technique and stuff like that. But then obviously it's very physical as well. And it's like, just makes
Yeah.
my life better. So when I do have to handle something hard that happens with my business or on conversation with my wife, I'm like, okay, I have some evidence about being able to do hard things. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's step into the arena. Let's do the fucking thing. I'm not gonna die because of it. It's all gonna be okay. Like, and so, like, those are important lessons. I mean, I learned basically everything in life through sports and my parents. And so I don't think there's anything better for young kids, as with your kids, like just being into something hard, doing sports, doing martial arts, like being inside of a community. And then those lessons are easy to extrapolate when you get into real life, or you get your heart broken for the first time, or you're out of college and you get denied from your first 20 jobs, or whatever the case may be. This is all part of the deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure, man. No, I love that you do jujitsu. So we're like definitely on the same wavelength with that, because like with judo and just like jujitsu, right? The reason, when I first started doing it, I was doing it again for the wrong reasons. And you'll find a lot of people in their like 40s and 50s just do it like they use it as an escape, because their actual life is so miserable that they spend so much time in the gym or in the academy training, right? That's not the solution either, right? You need to know before you step on the mat, why are you going there, right? Why are you doing jujitsu? Why are you doing judo? For me, it was, I always had this fear of conflict, fear of fighting, right? And so judo is perfect for me because it teaches me how to be in fight mode, right? Because if you can learn how to be in fight mode, you're prepared so that when you have to fight in real life, like when I say fight, metaphorically speaking, like when you have to engage in conflict or a difficult conversation, you can do it because I'm always training for it on the mat, right? I'm always training for it. And I think everybody should develop that fight mode um mindset, because if you want to go out, if you want to get after it, if you want to go after things in your life, you need to be aggressive. You need to build a sense of aggressiveness, a sense of yeah, aggressiveness, I would say. Aggression in terms of going after the things that you know you want to go after, right? But that's you're going to be hesitant to do that if you are not aggressive enough, right? And for me, judo teaches me like you have to be aggressive. You're not I can't go into judo and be like, "Okay, I'm just going to have a, a nice roll here." No, because like the coach is going to tell you, "Hey, you go spar with that guy who weighs 100 pounds more than you." Well, I mean, if you don't know that guy's going to kill you. So you better wake up. Okay. If you don't wake up, you're going to get injured. So you're forced to get into this fight mode mindset. And, it's happened to where I'm like just dazing off, like not a good idea. If you're dazing off when it's time to like pay attention, focus, get into that mode. And, I read also that you were, used to be a pro wrestler, right? And like when
Yeah.
I saw that, I saw a video of you, I was like, man, that must be like that sense of invigoration and aliveness that you must feel or felt when you did that. And I think we need that. We all need this feel this a way to feel alive, to feel invigorated in life because like that's what expands your perspective, right, on life and what's possible. But we need to feel these different emotions, and one of the most important emotions I think is feeling this sense of invigoration and aliveness, like wow, like you're just awake and you're really in the present moment and you're loving life, right? And like I was just telling you earlier, I think people live in quiet desperation, this internal misery. They want something more, and but they can't really get to that, and hence why when you were telling me about you doing sports your whole life, that sports is such a beautiful thing because it helps you feel those things, that invigoration, that aliveness, as a way to expand your perspective and look beyond yourself on what you can actually do, right? If that makes any sense.
Yeah. Yeah, being a pro wrestler is the fucking coolest thing I've ever done in my whole life.
You see, no, I knew you
Yeah.
were going to say that.
Dude, it's
Dude,
crazy. Like, I wanted to be either a professional baseball player or a professional wrestler. I was able to pretty much go to the ends of both of those careers. And like talking about parents, like told my parents I was going to be a pro wrestler when I was 13. They didn't even bat an eye. Okay, we support you. We love you. We'll take you all the WWE shows. Now there's a bunch of videos and photos on the internet of me in my underwear, like all like tanned out and, whatever. And it's like, it's great. It's a vibe. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing better than doing something that gives you an overwhelming sense of joy. But also at the same time, back to what you said earlier, there is a bit of professional wrestling that is all pretend. And so I was sort of addicted to the attention I was getting in the ring from the crowd. And how did I get that outside of it? And now I'm just like a regular dude. Probably the part of the reason why I started a podcast, right?
yeah,
Probably part of the reason why I do public speaking, to sort of emulate some of those things. It's never the same, but like there is sort of this sense in the back of my mind that I need that attention. Now I'm always trying to work on that, but you don't become a pro wrestler in your underwear in front of a crowd if you don't like sort of need that validation and attention. But not to say I absolutely loved it and I adore it, and it's one of my favorite chapters of my life. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. But I did want to discuss with you one of your ideas that I found really, really, really interesting, and it's this thing that you call a personal constitution.
uh,
Um, can you explain what that is and how maybe people can construct their own constitution in their life?
yeah. Personal constitution for me, I first learned about from this book I read, called Leading with Character, I think it is, from this psychologist, Jim Lauer. He's a performance psychologist. I read it some years ago, and he talks about how it's so critical to building, just like a country or a nation has a personal constitution, each individual should have a personal constitution. Personal constitution basically like a list of the things that are most important to you, a list of your basic values that you want to live by, your what your purpose is, what you want your legacy to be, what you want your vision to look like, and reviewing that simple document on a regular basis. And I look at it every day because what it does for me is it narrows my focus on the things that are more that are important to me. So because we live in such a crazy world of everybody wanting trying to suck the attention out of you, you need a way to funnel your, like horse blinders. That's what a personal constitution. It helps me put on my horse blinders and focus on what are my priorities in life, what am I working on, not being distracted by some shiny object and like changing course and going that way. So for me it's a focus mechanism for me. And anybody can build it. You just have to ask yourself the right questions in terms of what are the things that are most important to you, i.e. your values. What do you want your purpose to be, or what is your purpose, or what are your purposes? You're allowed to have more than one purpose, right? People think like, oh, what you put so much stress on yourself by like, oh, I need to really sit down and read books about purpose and think about what my purpose is. No, you go find your purpose by just having different experiences. And for me, I have multiple purposes. I don't have just one. My purpose is to be a good dad. My purpose is to be a good husband. My purpose is to be there for my parents. My purpose is to build a company that serves other people. And then your vision, like what do you want that to look like, right? Simple questions like that. Very simple stuff, man. It's not rocket science, but it's in the reviewing, like reminding yourself to review it. Simple document, simple technique, but for me I found that it's very powerful in terms of helping me focus on the right things and prioritizing the right things and not getting sidetracked by shiny objects and people saying things in my ear, you know? And it's a morphing document. You can change it. It's going to change based on your experiences that you're going to have and things you're going to learn. Uh and it's a changing document. It's always it's an alive, a living document. Yeah.
How has your personal vision changed over the years for you?
Yeah. Before I wanted some things, and then through experiences I realized that those things were just not really for me. And so I just press delete. Or I put too many things and I'm like, I want to be this, I want to be that, I want to be a New York Times best selling author, I want to do speaking engagement. Like, and then by reviewing it, you can really put things on paper. You create distance between what you're thinking and what you actually wrote down. And you're like, okay, is that really what I want? Or is that what everybody else is doing? Hence, I should be doing that, right? Is that really what I want? Is that really what I want my vision to look like? And so by process of elimination and just having experiences, um, it changes a little bit. It doesn't change drastically, but it changes a little bit, a few degrees left or right.
Yeah. Yeah, the vision definitely does change. Um, from what you're discussing, what question comes to my mind like most pressingly is like if you're sitting down to write this personal constitution, you're really thinking about what do I really want? And that could be a very challenging question because you have so much conditioning or programming or whatever you want to call it up
Mm,
into this moment. Maybe you're 18 or maybe you're 25 or maybe you're 40 or whatever the age might be. It's like, what do you like really want? And maybe you have to get silent for 10 minutes. Maybe you're on a car ride where there's no music playing and you just can like actually fucking think about it. And like, what did you really enjoy? Like when I was growing up, why I became a pro wrestler is because I love the Power Rangers. Okay. That's all I dressed up
yeah,
as. And I was like, how the fuck do I do that as a real job?
yeah,
Okay. How do I
yeah,
dress up every weekend? Like, there's going to be always things that we did when we were kids that we just like thought we would grow out of or whatever. Like, that's dumb now, but like that's probably something in the realm of where you could start about
yeah.
what you really want. And I think that's a very powerful question. What do you think?
No, for sure, man. There's this book author that I love. His name is Robert Greene. He wrote a book called Mastery, and he says like how to achieve mastery in your chosen vocation. But the first chapter, I think it's the first chapter, he starts with y- asking yourself that question: what is it that you want your vocation to be? And one of the first things he says is to finding that is start, like you said, start when you were a child. Look at your past when you were young. what were your natural inclinations or preferences that you had. And that is a really, really good starting point to figure out what it is that you want. And also, like you said, you have to get out of the constant grind and go somewhere for a couple of days if you can. Go to a hotel or something, go in front of an ocean, look at the sea, go sit on a bench in a park and really like give yourself that space to ponder and think. You can't just answer these questions on the fly. You have to take time, and then you have to come back to it. It's kind of like a process. You have to come back to it, write things down, ponder, reflect, think, and give yourself that time, man. You give yourself that time to answer these questions. You can't just answer them willy-nilly, and that's, I think, super important. Yeah, the time, like you said.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Resilience. How does someone start to become more resilient, or how would you teach someone to become more resilient in their life? What are some practical tools?
Yeah. If I could, I would tell everybody to do martial arts, combat
Mm,
sport, you know? Because like I think we should define what resilience is. For me, resilience is about being able to get back up, uh and being able to survive, but eventually being able to thrive in the face of the setbacks, in the face of adversity, in the face of uncertainty, and getting stronger. So thriving, i.e., getting stronger despite all those setbacks. That's what resilience means to me. And to build that kind of resilience, well, you need to create intentionally some identity expanding experiences that teaches you where you identity expanding experiences, meaning like hard things, okay, where you're going to be tested, where you're going to be challenged, where you're going to fail, and then learning how to get back up and doing it again and developing that tough skin, that mental toughness. So at True Progress Lab we have two main elements: physical conditioning and mental conditioning. And then we infuse certain emotion and nervous system regulation protocols and communication protocols during the physical conditioning and during the mental conditioning. Physical conditioning meaning rigorous physical activity. It could be running, it could be rowing, it could be doing martial arts. It depends. Mental conditioning is putting yourself in potentially embarrassing situations. Why put yourself in potentially embarrassing situations? Because you need to get embarrassed. Because we fear getting embarrassed. We fear getting humiliated. We fear failing in public. We fear being judged. So we have to desensitize ourselves to this fear, because you're not going to be able to get after it if you have this. You look like a RoboCop physically, but you still have this fear of being judged, right? So you got to do both. um and that's what builds the resilience, man, going through those hard things and then getting back up and failing and educating your mind after you fail on the right things to tell yourself, because if you don't know what to tell yourself after you fall on your face, you get beat up, you're not going to come back. You're going to be like a dog with your tail between your legs. You're not going to want to come back to judo. You're not going to want to come back to jiu-jitsu. So many people quit in jiu-jitsu. It's not jujitsu. It's because it's their mind, right? Jujitsu is just like any other difficult thing in the world, whether it's like surfing 30-foot waves or, whatever else that's really physically, mentally demanding. It's what you tell yourself after you get out of jujitsu class, after you just got beat up by like a 14-year-old girl or kid. Like, are you gonna feel humiliated? Okay, yeah, maybe. But then, okay, what do you tell yourself to get to go back? The next couple days or the next day. And that's, I think, the super important part. Like not knowing what to tell yourself after that. That people just don't want to come back. So I don't know what you think about that.
yeah, I think that's, yeah, spot on. I think there's a deep relationship between a growing sense of resilience and deepening your confidence in yourself. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, by building resilience, you're basically building competence, right? Because you're putting in the reps. So you're building that confidence. You're building that confidence to then tackle more difficult things, right? Because you can't tackle difficult things if you don't have the foundation first, that basic level of competence. It's like being bold, or if you want to take more risks. How can you take risks and be bold and be courageous if you haven't developed the foundational skill of like basic level competence, right? Once you start feeling like you have that, you build some self trust in you, some self belief, i.e., competence, then you're gonna expand your perspective, your self perception, and think, okay, I've done these hard things. Now I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna play around over here. I'm gonna try pro wrestling. I'm gonna try judo. Like you have a certain level of competence to where you're like, okay, now I'm gonna take more risks here. I'm gonna be bolder over here, right? But you can't be bold if you haven't really built a basic level of the reps.
Yeah, because then you're giving yourself credible evidence, and credible evidence is all you need to build sort of sustaining confidence. And then you talked about another level of that confidence is your self-talk, which is really sort of the most important piece of your confidence in the midst of something hard. Like I can have previous success that'll build my confidence. I can have credible evidence that'll build my confidence. I can prepare as much as humanly possible. That'll build my confidence. But when I'm actually in the arena doing the thing, what I say to myself matters most. And that only happens if I have the credible evidence to say something real to myself. Like if I've done something hard before and I'm doing it again, I'm like, cool, I've been in this spot before. I'm going to try my best. I got this shit. Now, I've never done anything hard before and you're brand new at something, you're going to use experience from another domain. Like fucking, you learned how to walk. Like that's really, really, really hard. I'm sure I'm going to watch my son fall down and get back up and fall down and get back up. He's
Right.
already building credible evidence right there that he can do something hard. And I'm going to remind him of that over and over and over again. And hopefully that gets instilled in him when he tries something brand new, like goes to his first jujitsu class when he's 4 years old and he doesn't know how to do an armbar right away. I'm like, dude, it's all right. It took you 4 years to learn how to walk, or 3 years or 2 years or whatever. Like you get, like, it's all good, bro. You got like, we already have all this stuff in us. We've already done all these super, super hard things. We just forget when we get to age 21 that we think we're
Yeah.
bad or something, and then we forget that we need to look like a fool and willing to advance, or look silly, and like all of these great skills we've already acquired, we just forget that
Yeah.
it took us so long. Like it took me like a my wife makes fun of me all the time. She calls me a dum dum because it took me too long to like learn how to read or whatever the case may be. It's like whatever, we figure it out. Like it comes, it's like, anyways.
No, that's really good, man. Like the mind is super fragile, and you got to write things down. Like David Goggins, he's this crazy ultra runner, former Navy SEAL. He talks about the cookie jar, which is just he keeps things simple. A cookie jar is just a list of the things, hard things for you that you overcame or accomplishments. Writing it down and then using your handy dandy reminders app and look and reminding and scheduling to look at it like every so often, because you have to infuse the mind with the right kind of, like you said, evidence based thoughts, right? You don't want false, like feel good thoughts that are based on nothingness. You want thoughts that are actually based on proof and evidence that you've done these previous things in the past. Hence why the cookie, I use a cookie jar all the time, man. Like I use it, I have to remind myself, because like every time you're doing something new, I think it's normal to feel like an imposter. I feel it's normal, like having those thoughts of like not feeling good enough, because you're in a new domain and you don't know everything, right? Like when the first time when you started jujitsu, right? You felt a little bit like, oh shit, okay. For me, when I started judo, I had a chip on my shoulder because I had done other martial arts. Big mistake. And then, I was taught like many lessons about that. I got beat up several times. My point is that you have to. I forgot what I was going to say. Um, about the what was I saying about about the cookie jar? You have to remind yourself that you've done these hard things in the past, and it's okay to feel like an imposter in the beginning, but by doing it, for me, it comes. You start thinking
Mhm.
about the things you've done. So, yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, I have every single one of my players build a confidence resume, and all that is basically just a laundry list of their greatest moments. Dude, write them the fuck down. Yeah, write them all down. I don't care if you were 9 years old and you hit a grand slam, write it down. Write it down, write it down. Like almost every single Major League Baseball player watches a 2 to 3 minute highlight tape of themselves right before they walk out on the field. Why? Because I'm instilling my best moments in my brain right before I walk out there. I'm
Yeah,
reminding myself that I am that person, because as athletes and as high performers, maybe you find this as well, we're hypercritical. All we want to look at is the faults because we want to get better. That's not a bad skill to have. We're like, okay, I can get better here, 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 and here. But we never like, oh, I'm actually doing fucking really good here, or I did really good here. This has actually gotten better. And so we need that cookie jar list or the confidence resume or watching the highlight tape, whatever it is for you. It doesn't matter what name it is. It's all basically the same idea. But right before you walk out to do something great, whether it's a presentation, a job interview, have something written on your phone or have something installed in your brain that you're going to, this is why I am this person. And this is why I know that I can do my best right here. And it's quite powerful. And we can hack our brain that way because our brain is sort of not really evolved to do this sort of thing. It's just evolved to keep us like safe from threats. But most of the time, we don't need that. We need something to override that. And that could be some of these sort of practical skills that you could apply to your life.
for sure. Yeah. And I think the thing you thought about, like those thoughts, those negative thoughts that you have, I think you have to real like that's why like at True Progress Lab we do these mental conditioning drills because we have to train, you have to teach your mind that, because we're always when I say negative thoughts or negative thinking or counterproductive thinking, I'm thinking worst case scenarios, right? Because it's the worst case, like we think, oh, the worst thing is going to happen, and that's what creates the anxiety, that's what creates the fear. But if you just teach your mind to realize that that worst case scenario is probably not going to happen, right? Then you're going to be fine. But how do you actually teach yourself that? How do you actually teach yourself that that worst case scenario thought that you're having in your brain is actually not going to happen? Well, you actually have to do the thing, right? So that's why I said earlier, like putting yourself in potentially embarrassing situations or stress situations where you're having those worst case thoughts and then doing the thing. And then after the fact, realizing or reflecting that that worst case thought actually didn't happen, right? So that has a way of teaching your mind, like, these worst case scenario thoughts, they're unfounded. Okay, they're
Mhm.
unfounded. And if they do happen, guess what? You're still gonna be breathing. Like
Right.
you're still living, right? It's gonna be okay. So that's something that's helped me, and it's something I try to teach people I help as well. Because it is the
Yeah.
worst case scenario thought. So
Talk to me a little bit about how you started True Progress Lab and where it's at right now today.
yeah, True Progress Lab was just started off as myself, building myself and learning how to stop avoiding things and stop fearing judgment. And then through personal experimentation, doing a lot of research, reading, um, I started doing judo. I started doing ultra running. I got really obsessed with that. Um, and then I joined the army and the reserves, and then I became an army resilience trainer, training soldiers on, the similar stuff that you and I are talking about here, resilience and building calm under, high stress situations. And, all that stuff that I learned, I, decided why not help people with that, like I developed this system that I could sort of repeat on myself. If I could do it with myself, I could probably do it with somebody else. And so I started doing that. And I started True Progress Lab, just teaching people how to do that. And yeah, and it's been going great, man. And it's been slowly, it's a constant journey, building a business, being an entrepreneur, focusing on the different areas of building a business and juggling that with being a dad and having my job as an attorney, because I'm an attorney by trade. And yeah, it's the best decision I've ever made. And it was a decision I made that was, I think, close to COVID, right after COVID hit, 2020, I believe. And it was a beautiful moment. Well, obviously not a beautiful moment for many, but for me, it was the perfect moment to just stop and get outside the grind and that tunnel vision of constant grinding and thinking about what I wanted to do, what I really wanted to do. And yeah, and I've been doing True Progress Lab pretty much full time, and I haven't looked back. And I would have never known that I would have been doing this. I've been being a resilience coach from like I studied business in college. I went to law school, obviously, and doing different work there. And now it just goes to show you, like, you never know, man. You gotta stay flexible. You never know where life is gonna take you. And I love it. Just like you were a pro wrestler, baseball, your business, podcasting. It's beautiful, man. Life is short. At the end of the day, what's gonna matter is the people you helped, your relationships with your friends, your family, your kids. And I try to keep that into perspective. I try to keep that definitely in my personal constitution. So
Yeah. 100%, man. Well, as we wrap up, is there anything you want to share or mention that maybe I failed to ask you or is at the top of your brain right now before we jet off?
no, if people want to reach me, I'm at trueprogresslab.com, and I'm on social media at True Progress Lab. It was a great chat, man. Grateful for this conversation with you.
Yeah, thank you, Carlos. Very much appreciated, man.
Thank you very much for tuning into that episode. And if you enjoyed it, click right here, for another full-length episode of the podcast. And please don't forget to subscribe. But most importantly, above all else, please take good care of yourselves and others. And I'll see you next time. Lots of love. Cheers.